What's going on, creators? Yeah, I just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Yeah, today I'd like to continue just the conversation on mental diets and hopefully add something positive to your mental diet for today. Got a bunch of topics to bring to your attention, to your awareness, and hopefully, it is enlightening on some level. But it has to do with the bridges of incidents, as Neville Goddard would describe, as you're embodying the desired state in the here and now. And that has to do with getting out of desiring. Actually, it's a kind of counterintuitive because the old mindset, is constantly just looking at these different levels and these different milestones, comparing and oh well, that person's way up here, and I'm not, I'm not on that same pedestal, and so I can't feel a certain way until I hit that pedestal. I was talking to some guy on Twitter. And he was just supposedly, I don't know if this is real or not, but he claimed he's a business owner too, and he has all these excuses and limiting beliefs of why somebody over here can have this level of success, and then that means that he can't, and then he's arguing for his own limitations and shit, and it's I get tired of hearing that kind of shit, because it's you're doing it to yourself with these narratives you're telling yourself about a reality that's not real, and so letting go of a lot of that conditioning and programs and these way of thinking about things that's ultimately self-sabotaging and destructive on some level, and doesn't actually serve what your goal is, so it's I'm not tell you what your goal should be, it's I feel like the quote unquote American dream, there's nothing implicitly wrong with it, other than the fact that when you achieve all these different milestones, when you actually have the experience of your dreams coming true, there's still unhappiness and just this mental activity, and it's the idea that, well, once you hit a certain level of quote unquote success or financial whatevers or abundance, health, whatever, any of these types of milestones, then all of a sudden it's a utopia. And it's the only time that it is ever a utopia is now. So unless you're able to kind of put yourself in that state of being that everything is going exactly according to plan, I don't have to continuously prove myself to other people. I don't have to continue to effort to try to have 100% of people just love you. It's just getting out of those kind of, I feel like there's spells, ultimately that keep you stuck in these states of consciousness that are I don't want to say limited, but it's you can expand your horizon so much more if you take on a different perspective or a different narrative in your mind, because most of the narratives that I've experienced letting go of, were completely bullshit. I mean, they were made up. It's wanting to hold on to Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny, and then just being afraid to experience life without that narrative, even though without it, in a lot of ways, you're better off. So it's weird because the stuff that we hold on to so fervently, a lot of times when we do let it go, it's oh, why was I holding on to that for dear life when this is so much better now that this has happened? But that's part of change, and change is very intense to our old mindset, or the ego mind or whatever just feels oh, any change is going to be worse than getting better. It's constantly recreating the past traumas and torments and sufferings. Oh, anytime something new happens, that's going to be my go-to. It's got to be miserable. It's got to be hopeless. It's got to be whatever's. And it's the more that you're able to disconnect from those fear thoughts, those hopeless thoughts, those, oh, well, tomorrow is going to be worse than this year is worse than the last, and it's worse than the one before. Look at the 90s. Look how great it was then. I hear some people, in my, life, I guess, that will just be oh, I just wanted things to go back with before COVID. It's this shit has been going on. It's like, I almost honestly feel like, now that everything has happened over the past couple of years with them, and everything has just been like brought to the light, and like people are now like, oh shit, I mean, the stuff you were saying is actually not just crazy. It's one of those, but then people will like kind of bring that shit back to me again now, and it's like, I don't give a fuck about these people, that are trying to like enslave and dominate other people, because I know that they're just doing it to themselves. And so it's like, the more that you battle and resist those types of things, the more you strengthen it, actually, because then your consciousness starts becoming more of just vengeance and just like, oh, I gotta fight these people and I gotta do this. And it's like, you don't gotta do any of that shit. People aren't keeping you in a little box. You're doing that to yourself, because ultimately, you can be, do, and have anything if you realize who you actually are in Christ. And just believe the promises of God to be true. That whatever you ask for, believe that you've received it and it's yours. Either that's a true statement or it's not, and you'll never know that unless you test it for yourself. You can hear Jim Carrey talk about how he wrote himself a $10 million check and then it came true. Or there's so many. I mean, I feel like my whole fucking like life, has been just an example of like things just happening like that. And it's like, well, why aren't you on like Cribs and having MTV come and show off how awesome you're living? And it's like, I don't care about shit like that. It's just like, I care more about like freedom, and just like, I don't know, just, not having some like, not being a slave to some satanic system. It's just like, I'm just not into that. It's like, I'm more into, heaven. It's like, what's going on heaven wise? I mean, that's the end goal, so like the art of dying, or the law of assumption, it's like, moving from state to state. It's like, well, if you're going to live in the end, as like Neville Goddard would describe, it's like, all these metaphysics, people want to describe, that isn't the end goal heaven, that we suffer and we go through linear time in this school where we have to learn all these lessons. And I find that to be just a cop-out, I feel like divine timing is a cop-out. I feel like all these things are just excuses to reject the present moment. And not only just reject the present moment, but, it's about being, it's like, what are you being? You can tell what you're being by what you're thinking, because your thoughts are reflecting what you're being, so it's like, once you already realize that, things are all connected, that, part of the problem that we have is thinking that we're separate from our desire, we're separate from people, we're separate from the circumstances of our life, and then we battle and resist these things as they manifest unconsciously because of our thoughts about them, and it's easier and easier to see that, as you're just kind of standing in like awareness, being present, kind of just being in the zone, and maybe as like somebody who's like plays guitar and has been doing that, I don't know, for 20 years, I guess now, there's like a flow state that you can get into where it's like, you almost don't even realize that you're the one doing it. It's like you can almost disconnect from what you're doing to almost being able to just hear it, but then it's like, as soon as like thought comes in, then all of a sudden that's an opportunity that then you maybe forget what you're doing, or, fuck something up, or, play a jazz note or two, but like, the thing of it is it's like, you can do that with all sorts of shit, it's just like, through my handyman business, I do it all the time, throughout the day. It doesn't seem to matter, what's going on. You can kind of stay in this like flow state and just kind of, desire to see God in situations and people, and what's going on now? What's going on now? What's God thinking about? What's a heaven situation? How would I be if I was in heaven right now? And that's one of the things that I kind of I'm thinking about, with, my dad passing away, being in, heaven, and just thinking about like all my like friends that have died, and, people that I've just, experienced like their deaths and stuff. And it's just like, you know, thinking in terms of like consciousness and everything else, it's like, if life's eternal or whatever, if consciousness is eternal, God's eternal, in the here and now, so it's like, you get all these questions of like, well, what would I be thinking about? What would I, it's like, really, there's nothing to matter right now. If you're not plugged into all these media narratives of like, oh, there's some conflict going on in this part of the world that I've never been to. Oh, there's some corporate greed going on in this city I never go to. Oh, there's some horrible shit going on 500 miles away. It's like, yeah. Yeah, that sucks for those people, but it's like, that's, if that shit was going on in my community, in the area where I live, like, you do something about it. So it's like, my sympathy goes so far, before it's like, take some ownership of what's going on in your area. I hear like a lot of people, with like Elon Musk. I always think his name is, I don't know. But, buying Twitter and shit. And then you see all these people just going, well, if I had $44 billion, I'd end world hunger. And it's like, part of people's confusion on things is they don't understand the laws of consciousness. And when the Bible lays out, and it kind of sounds like cruel, I guess. Let me pull it up. And it's like a good my internet's not working for some reason, but like it's like the Bible verse where it's like, those that have, it'll be taken away from them, even what they had, but the ones that, or how does that go? The ones that have, more will be given. The ones that don't, even what they have will be taken from them. And it's like, one of these ideas of like, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. And it's like, and people don't want to even admit that their own consciousness is playing a role in their life. And so, it's like, well, you could feed all those people, but if their consciousness is one that is not aligned to a certain way of being, they're just going to keep unconsciously, this is the problem. It's like, we're always doing this. Consciously or unconsciously, it doesn't matter. So it's like, a lot of people in like victim consciousness and scarcity are unconsciously drawing that fear and shit to them like a magnet, and then like when it manifests, they go, well, this is just how it is. And it's like, that's not how it is. That is for you, because of your consciousness and the way you're thinking about things and the way it's manifesting what you don't want to happen. And then you're constantly reacting to it, raging against it, fighting against it, strengthening it, making it worse, doubling down on it. And it's like, if you just would just let go of thinking that you're right all the time. And it's like, well, Mike, you think you're right. And it's like, I don't think I know shit. It's like, I'm letting go of a lot of this shit I think I know. It's like, and the more I do that, especially when it comes to when something happens in the present moment that's like, feels separate, like, oh, it's like some maybe satanic force is doing something, or they, or the bad guys, are doing something, then it's like, or it's like sickness is manifesting, or, some shit like that, or whatever. Then it's like, start checking your thoughts about it. And if you're thinking things like, oh, this always happens to me, bad things are always going on, and then you're telling on yourself constantly with the narratives that you're speaking to yourself in consciousness, and it impresses the subconscious mind, and it reflects it out into your life. The more that you start to understand this dynamic of like the inner world, your inner being, I guess, being externalized to mirror back your relationship with God, because God's living through you on some level, and also like self, it's like God's looking at God's self, through you and your beliefs about who you are. And it's all about this identity, it's weird to put into words, but it's like, it's a cooperative thing, and the more that you stop thinking that God's some being with a beard in space, like, and it's like the ego kind of consciousness likes to project this external, I don't want to say this external super being, or whatever, but then the more that you start to kind of go within, start seeking the kingdom of God and God's righteousness as Jesus would instructed, people to do that follow him. It's like the more you see how, what starts on the inside, what starts in the heart, and your beliefs, which the Bible says is like more valuable than gold, your faith. And your faith is the only thing that pleases God, is what, the Bible says then too. And so, then that gets externalized. Your faith gets rewarded by what you experience in your life. You're always reaping your consciousness. So just giving somebody something and try to force someone to change states of consciousness just by let me just give you this, say there's somebody in poverty, and you're just like, well, let me just give you, a stimulus check. Here you go. If people just had that same consciousness, they'll be in the same situation again, and you can keep, throwing, Band-Aids on the problem. But until people change their consciousness, I'm not saying don't help people, but it's more of a help to help them change their identity, to help see God in them, which, is true. I mean, that is, God's in every one of us. It's like we're part of like creation. And so, one of the verses that stands out to me actually, is when Jesus is talking about the beggar on the street, the drug addict, the whatever, the prisoner, the inmate, the sick ones, the whoever, what you do to the least of people is what you're doing to him. And so, keep that in mind as you're going through your day. It's like, you see somebody, it's like, you don't know what's going on. They could have somebody close to them die. So I get these text messages from my church. It's just like, oh, this person's dead. Oh, this person's got cancer. Oh, this person's dealing with this. Oh, this person's whatever just died. This, it's just on. It's like daily. It's like daily I get these things. And it's like, most people are not having some easy fucking time. It's like, from what I experienced at least, but, a lot of it is not so much in the circumstances, it's in the continuing the emotions and the narrative surrounding different things, and how you are connecting with God about it. And, because nothing's an accident or coincidence. And it's hard sometimes for people to take ownership when the unconscious fears and separation thoughts manifest. And then it's like, you start battling and resisting them then, and strengthening them. And it's like, makes your faith all shaky and everything else. But it's like, once you realize that it's like the unconscious undesirable is just as it's just as easy to have the conscious desirable, and you're constantly choosing between one or the other, when presented with, a situation, it's like, how would Jesus handle this? It's like, would you react in fear and hysteria and panic and separation, or will you react in peace and unity and connectedness when you realize you're not separate from what's going on? It's like you can either extend love, or you see an undesirable situation, it's one thing to when you hear acceptance doesn't mean you agree with it. It's like you accept it. Maybe someone's standing in front of you and they're in a fucking shit state of consciousness, but that's not who they are. You can see that, this is what's going on. It's like, maybe somebody's like really addicted to like alcohol or something, and they're just, every time you see them, they're just fucking drunk and stumbling and stammering around. It's one thing to accept that, okay, well, this is happening in my space. It's another to say, oh, I agree with it. It's like, that's not who that person is. They deserve better than that. They, they're not living, but not to sit there, you can't force someone to change, but you can, on some level, be an example of someone who's gone through that, overcome it. And, you have a little bit more weight with somebody who's like, feels hopeless, like, oh, nobody's ever, quit smoking cigarettes or something. It's just like, well, that's not true. It's like, then you can, this is what happened to me. That's how I quit. And it's like that with lots of things, and so, yeah, the more that, you accept things, but, you can accept that it needs love extended to it. You can accept that, well, this is broken. What's the next step in this bridge of insight? But, at the same time, the situations and circumstances don't really matter. It's like, once you've decided to embody, who you are in Christ, all these things that are now happening. If you're going to live in the end, the end is heaven. So it's like, if you're in heaven, what would your day look like today? What would you be doing? How would you spend the eternity in heaven with God, who's in the eternal now right now with you? So what are you waiting for? That's what I get. Is like, what's the wait here? What's the hold up? Then you hear the excuses from people. Well, you have to suffer, and the more that you suffer through linear time, the more you'll get rewarded. It's like, that's dumb. That's a dumb thing to say. It's like there is no linear time. So you're spending eternity now suffering for, basically, because you just don't understand who you are and the laws of consciousness. It's just like, if you did understand that, you'd realize that the suffering is created by you. So God doesn't create the drama and suffering. It's like you are creating now, unconsciously. You are creating the separation that's not real, that you're creating the illusions. So, why, and that's why I get to, and so, yeah, and I test these things for myself. It's like I wouldn't be doing these if it, wasn't tangibly fucking working for me, and I see it, and it's like, yeah, you just try to share it with other people, most of which don't seem to listen or care, or, oh, you're crazy. You just think that you can just think your way into different things. It's like, it's not about your mind, really. It's about your heart, and with that, every little desire that you get in the mind, in that same thought is the fulfillment of it. Just give it to yourself. It's like you keep, wanting all these whatever external carrots of like, oh, if I only had this, then I could feel peaceful. Most of what we're thinking about, we think that that's going to create peace in our minds, which is actually the opposite. So it's like, I'm going to sit there and battle and resist it, against a situation. I'm going to think about how they wronged me, and I'm going to attack them in my mind and hope vengeance is on them and they get their karma and this and this and this. And it's like, when you catch yourself doing that, it's like, ask yourself, why am I doing this? More than likely, it's like, because I think this will make me feel peaceful. Like, this will bring me peace if this happened. If they got their karma, then I could feel peace. And it's like, you can just feel peace now by choosing to. And then as you choose it, as you become it, then there you go. Then it starts to become externalized. Then you start dealing with more and more harmony, and not dysfunction and chaos and drama, because you're the one that's creating the chaos, dysfunction, and the drama. Probably unconsciously, but it doesn't matter if it's consciously or unconsciously, you're still doing it. And God's going to reward you either way, which, should be an intense thing to think about, because all of these hardships that's already happened have been a result of consciousness, and God allowing it to play out in a way that reflects your consciousness and what you're being. So if you want to be, something that has a fucking shitty consequence attached to it, if you want to be like a gangster or something, and it's like the consequence, it's like, what the consequence of that is. It's like, you're gonna fucking get killed, or you're gonna end up in prison or jail, or shit's gonna get hard for you, because as you do shit to other people, you only do it to yourself, because we're all connected. So it's like the victim and the victimizer are the same in a lot of different ways. Not to say, now let me get triggered by that, I've been victimized by some criminal or whatever, and it's like, okay, yeah, I get it, and it's like, I don't really feel bad. It's like, who hasn't had fucking hard times? It's like, who hasn't watched somebody die? Who hasn't had somebody get, somebody steal your shit? Or it's like, yeah, welcome to the world of separation. You know, it's like, it can be, pretty, I don't know, I could probably, create an argument, for, this world of illusion, of separation, is hell, and if you believe you're alone in this brain and a body with all this fucking shit going on, separate from God and all this kind of stuff, experiencing fear and everything else, it's like, it's like you're spending the eternal moment, the present moment, constantly in this rat race of that. Do you want to? I mean, it's like, do you want to keep doing that, or do you want to kind of let that go and see what God has in store for you? I mean, God created you, and God says that you're a masterpiece. And most of the stuff you can start to learn. If you can extend love, if you can do it, God is more than capable of doing that for you then too. It's like if you are, sick and you, or if someone you love is sick and you're taking care of them, it's like, God's taking care of that person through you. So when you're sick, you can depend that, God will take care of you in a lot of the same ways. It's like, I don't know, how to really marry these ideas, in words, but like it's something that you can just learn through experience. So it's like, me personally, applying the law of assumption, which works. I mean, it's like, I was thinking about getting a truck, like, because my work van's still been broken from hitting that pothole. And like, I was thinking about, maybe I just scrap that van and use, I think I'd probably get maybe $300-400 out of the scrap. You get a couple $100, put a deposit down on a truck, and then, and next thing you know, I mean, it's like boom, boom, boom. It's just, next thing you know, I come home for like lunch to let my dog out and everything. And as I'm getting ready to go, I was getting the chickens like back in their coop because they were flying around, and this stranger just comes over, asked me about my van, asked me what was wrong with it. I told him, and he was like, "Well, if you buy the parts, I got a truck, some Chevy 1500 or whatever, like a 1990 something truck, not in the greatest shape. I could probably just paint it, but like, he said he'd trade me straight up for it. And it's just like, I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. I mean, it all seems like it's come together like Truman Show, so it's like, what do I got to lose? Might as well, at least it runs. And it's basically just like $300 worth of parts. So it's like, spend $300 for a truck that runs. Maybe, just don't know. It's still kind of on the fence about it. But, there's the fear of like, oh, I don't know this person. Is it going to be a shitty deal, or is it disregarding the whole like divine timing of, it's like, and that's my own kind of stuff, and this is the stuff I deal with all the time, where it's just like, thinking about, different things, and then through like bridges of instance, then they manifest, and then experience them coming to fruition. And it's like I'll be thinking about like doing different types of jobs, and then I get a phone call, and then that's the type of job I get. It's like, my contractor that works for me, he's doing a job right now. It's like, and I just got done doing a series of jobs. It's like I redid a bathroom, like shower for people at church, and I did some cabinets, I painted them, put new hardware on it, did a tile backsplash, then just got done painting a house, and it's like, I just wanted to just take a look, then put it in the garbage disposal yesterday, painted a food truck. It's just going to take a fucking day or two off, and so, he's doing now, and so, I had some time. I've been getting emails from Digi wanting to do another stream. The one we did together didn't get recorded or whatever. I've just been so busy and dealing with so much drama and everything else. I haven't had time to really be able to do that, but hopefully, I told him I'd message him when I get some time. Hopefully that will be, on the agenda for the near future. But like, I think I'm gonna bounce. So, thanks everybody for liking, sharing, subscribing. I appreciate your spiritual support and your financial support too. Thank you for that. Until the next now, God bless.